Brent Beard on the line from First Coast News and College Sports Today to talk up, a minimal schedule as we've been outlining throughout the night. Brent, how you doing today?
Well, I'm doing okay, Mark. Good to be on with you. By the way, I know this is not SEC, but it's for everybody. But just saw where the recruiting dead period goes to April the 15th of next year. So you're talking about challenging as far as recruiting is concerned. So it will be what, Mark, a year probably since coaches and these recruits have seen each other. But again, we are glad for the games that we do have. Florida, Arkansas, and Kentucky and Vanderbilt, Ole Miss, South Carolina. Yes, it is a very slim schedule for this week, but at the same, and frankly, Mark, I don't like this any more than anybody else does. But I would frankly rather fight through this right now in mid-November than mid-December.
Absolutely. There's no question about that. And because the SEC did get on the field by September 26th, there is some room to make some adjustments both on December 12th and possibly, from what I'm hearing, the weekend of the SEC championship game.
Yeah,
that's something that the Pac-12 and the Big Ten has already built into the schedule because they had next to no room that they wanted to get the entire league involved on championship weekend, which I thought was kind of an interesting scheduling quirk or approach to try to get as many games in, and also having the wild card scenario of nobody knowing who was going to play that final weekend because it was going to come down to the seedings in the league. Right. For the SEC in particular, it's going to be more of just trying to make up as many games as possible.
Mark, I like that, frankly, that these teams have a final opportunity to play, and hopefully they'll be able to have enough players who want to play on that final weekend too. But, I mean, it certainly is television inventory, and they have got a bunch of inventory that they've got to deal with and that they've got to fill. So hopefully on that weekend it will be. And you know, the amazing thing is there's so many things. I mean, you end the season December the 5th, and you end the season December the 19th, the regular season the 5th, or some of the other teams basically will be finishing their regular season on the 19th, along with the SEC championship game. So, and I guess, Mark, at this point, it was probably advantageous for the league, whether they were thinking this way or not, that they've got the game on at prime time at 8:00 for the SEC championship game, and you can play these other games before then.
So, Brent, it's funny that you bring that up because I did not know that the time had been altered, because my thought was, well, the SEC championship game is typically played at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And it would be quite interesting if there were so many other games that needed to be played that some of them would be played after the SEC championship game. Yeah. But I guess that won't happen.
No, no, that's good. And look, again, I don't know how intentional it was in case something like that would happen, but look, we needed to have something work out well, Mark, and that did.
Yeah, to this point. I'm not going to try to come up with some scenario in which it's going to go south on us. Pardon the pun in terms of talking SEC.
Yeah.
All right. But before we carve up again, much less than a full slate, 3/7 of a slate, we'll look back here and pinpoint this Florida-Georgia game that's monumental on so many fronts. Georgia had bullied Florida the last 2 years. That seemed to be the difference. There was a decided talent gap. I'm not going to call it significant, but it was decided. And Georgia was the stronger team in the trenches, and that seemed to be the deciding factor in the fourth quarter. And the question going into this was, did that still exist to the point that it would result in a Georgia win, or all the skill and playmaking ability and this air raid style of offense? I'm not going to call it that. I know that's not the deal there. I'm stealing that from other offenses, but that type of approach was going to spin this thing in Florida's favor. And Brent, we certainly got our answer.
Yeah, we really did. And again, that game's played in Jacksonville. where we are down here. And look, to me, it's a highlight of the year. Frankly, Mark, it's a game that we love to have. It's just a real shame that we didn't have a full stadium. We weren't able to have RV City and just the little things around the game that we do every year that have been very traditional. But the game itself started out, looked like Georgia was going to run away from it. But Florida, unlike previous years, dug in, were able to tie the game and just went on this absolute blitzkrieg that they had. I'm sure David Waters talked a good bit about this, so I won't belabor the point too much. But what Kyle Trask has done, first SEC quarterback to throw 4 touchdown passes in 5 straight games. I mean, he's almost like Mac Jones right now. Every time he has a game, he does something historical. I don't mean he just has a good game. He does something to break records. So that really is amazing. And I mean, they look very Alabama-like, frankly, didn't they, Mark, for that period of time where they really were just overwhelmed Georgia. And look, Georgia's still got, next to Alabama, the best roster in the league, I believe. But I think the injuries really took its toll as the game went on. They had more injuries at that point. But they struggle so much right now at quarterback that they've really got to do something in their game next week, Mark. That they've got to look at JT Daniels, and they've got to look at Carson Beck, who obviously, ironically enough, is from Mandarin High School here in Jacksonville too. So now George Pinkins will be back, so that's going to help them, whoever the quarterback's going to be. But George reminds me a lot of Tennessee at this point. That they need to spend the rest of their season trying to hone in on a quarterback. And there are no perfect scenarios. You're going to have to throw a guy out there if he's ready or not to be able to give him some experience. And that's going to be important. And I think these fan bases will feel a lot better that if they go to the end of the year and they've got some notion of who the quarterback is going to be for next year, that I think that would be your balm in Gilead a little bit for these teams if that happened.
Yeah, I don't think it's that alarming to anyone when there are 2 quarterbacks competing and the slightly lesser talented player wins the job, because the quarterback has so many other responsibilities in regards to leadership, getting everyone on board, making the right decisions, understanding and grasping the offense and so forth. But when you've got 4 quarterbacks in the room and you had a 5th in Jamie Newman, and the guy that emerges as the starter is the least talented of the bunch, then there's some concern there. DeJuan Mathis got his shot, and he didn't necessarily show us anything either.
Well, he did not, and Mathis now has struggled throughout the year. And again, I give Stetson Bennett credit. I think Stetson, for his limitations, did about as well as he could do at this point. Also, now I'll say this, and we've gone over this situation here. There can be no real gloating for Florida on down the line, because, Mark, as you saw in that game, there were 3 times in the fourth quarter that Georgia have wide open receivers, and the quarterback either overthrew them or just simply couldn't get them the ball, or they would make the pass and they'd fumble before they made the completion. So it's not all wine and roses for the Gators yet. They've still got some defensive situations to straighten out, but it really is a struggle for Georgia right now at quarterback, and that is something that Kirby Smart has got to get fixed, and Todd Monken too. And look, I get the fact that everybody thinks they should have kept Justin Fields. Sure, they should have, but the reality is they didn't have a crystal ball at that point. Fields was basically unknown. Jake Fromm was lighting the world on fire, and he was molten lava hot right then, and pretty much. All these people who've been criticizing Kirby would have said the same thing and probably done the same thing at this point. But still, that doesn't remove the problem that they've got to get that quarterback situation fixed sooner than later.
Got Brent Baird on the line. You can catch him on First Coast News, also College Sports Today. We bring him in and we throw anything related to the SEC at him, and we expect him to be able to field it, and he does flawlessly each and every time. He's never let us down. As we look around the league, certainly not that Auburn won the game, but in the fashion in which they whipped up on LSU as a game that was basically a pick 'em, certainly surprised me because I thought that LSU at least righted some of its ills the week before against South Carolina and showed that they were going to give it a pretty good effort the rest of the year.
I thought early in that game, LSU was in it, and they made some mistakes that the Auburn defense took advantage of on the interception, the pick six, and the scoop and score, and by the way they were playing offense at that point with Finley. He really he did the best he could. He wasn't ready for that moment. Frankly, it looks like now Miles Brennan is out for the rest of the year, or at least they're going to protect him and keep him out. But I think the thing with Auburn that you're seeing is defensively, they're getting healthier. Big Cat is coming back, and I think he's going to be healthy. KJ Britt, by the way, by the time they play Alabama, is going to be back, so that will help them. I think Bo Nix is playing within himself a lot more and not trying to come up with sandlot plays at times in order to get the job done. He's staying a little bit more in the pocket. And look, it never hurts to hand the ball off to Tank Bigsby or get the ball off to Seth Williams at that point either, does it, Mark? So by doing so, that helped. They've got, and with the games coming up, and the thing that Auburn's got to be careful about is, frankly, is a fact of where they have a letdown and play down the level of their competition before they get to Alabama and A&M.
There it is, folks. 7 games scheduled. We're only going to see 3. Hopefully, most of those will be made up a little bit later as the SEC plays a bit of jigsaw puzzle with the schedule in the month of December, culminating with an SEC championship game on the 19th and maybe a few undercards, we will call them, before the championship game, which I think is quite fascinating.
Yes.
And whatever football we can get based on what we've endured and what we've seen. And we knew, Brent, we could almost have predicted that there would be a weekend like this where several schools would get hit hard and there would have to be numerous cancellations or postponements, as we've seen. Brent, we appreciate you stopping by, as always.
My pleasure. And I'll say this going out. The thing we need to do, Mark, is celebrate every game that we're able to play this year instead of griping and complaining about the ones that we don't. Hopefully we can get those rescheduled at some point. But we thought this would happen. The SEC's had a plan. They're carrying that out. And we look forward to it continuing. And always great to be with you, my friend. Take care.
Yeah.